embalmed by these works, which seem very expressive, intimate, and personal. One feels a sense of someone who's reflecting his inner state of mind. And this state of mind itself seems to be one which is in constant movement. There is a juxtaposition of colors which are they are sort of bright and embedded in memories and his own reflective state of mind, as I said. And one feels a very personal, intimate connection with it.
Same.
I would say that the way these colors are moving on the canvas, one is tempted to call them expressionists, although of course expressionists in a different sense. And they are in a way, although they are not reflecting, I would say that they are expressionists, but they are also saying something about the state of affairs around us, the social situation. I would like Harsha to say something about the colors that he has used on his surfaces.
Thank you, Yashodhara. First, a little bit. Yashodhara, I've known for quite a few years, but we meet at cultural events or art events, give each other a smile and then move on. Ashok has been more intimate here. Since I was my late teens and early 20s. And there is a poem by Thomas Gray, which is entitled Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard. And one stanza of that I'll narrate, and I think that very aptly describes Ashok. That is, full many a gem of purest tracery, the dark unfastened caves of ocean beds, full many a flower is born to blush and see, and waste its sweetness upon the desert of Well, this selection of colors is instinctive. One thing is that I don't visualize the word in my head first and then try to make an image of it. I usually cover the surface with one color to start with, and then look at the palette and pick up another color and apply it. And sometimes it is alright, sometimes it is not, so then apply another color over it. And that's how it progresses. There are certain, for example, the repeating triangle. Now, the triangle has got many, symbolically it's important in Christianity about the Holy Trinity, or in Hinduism about the Purusha and Prakriti and so on. None of that is my intention. It is just a form.
Yeah.
And when I was doing it, right since childhood, when I was very much interested in mathematics. I was being a master's degree. This form attracted me the most, and so it is. I don't intend to give a message to anybody or society at large with my work. Like my father once told me that, Harsha, the experience of making love is one, and the experience of the child is another. So these are the works of that experience of making love, which I have enjoyed. Now they are in front of you. So if you have any questions, you address them to the work, and hopefully they will answer. But you need a sustained sort of that thought. That's all right. Thank you.
Well, let me start with what has been already said. You are immediately struck by the almost audacious primacy of color. In earlier works of Harsha, there were subdued hues and there were sort of quieter colors, etc. He seemed to have now decided that the color needs to be color, without, as he rightly said, being carrier of or loaded with emotion, experience, memory. All these are fine things, but here is color all by itself. So there's one major thing which is happening. The second is, this is art as I look at it. I mean, I'm not an art critic, as you all know. I'm only a lover of art. And sometimes maybe love gives you some odd insight. It may not. So my own feeling is that here is art as a space, as pure space, without the constraints or confines of time. I mean, if one were to put it somewhat philosophically, one could say Harsha's art now stands at a point where it annihilates, suspends time. You know, these paintings do not relate to any specific time. You can argue they create their own time, but that's another aspect. One can create one's own time. But this is a space. Secondly, there is a certain, shall we say, autonomy of the geometry employed. Again, we have a word in Sanskrit poetics, Atma Pratishta or Swayam Pratishta, which means you are by yourself. There is no reference necessary for any outside. So although this is called subliminal, I find it very difficult to pronounce it properly because it's subliminal. It sort of. But this is an art, according to me, in which the interiority and the exteriority, the duality of the interior and the exterior, has been demolished. You can read them as mental graphics, or you can read them as images of the outside world, and both will be equally invalid. Because it is not trying to do that. It is trying to be itself. And for God's sake, in our country, especially under the pressure of the neo-narrative trends, there has been a tendency to reduce art to meaning, verbal meaning. And mostly verbal meaning comes from historical context or whatever you have. Now, this is an art in complete defiance of that. It is not trying to narrate anything. Swaminathan, his father and mentor, famously said once, not the image of reality, but the reality of the image. So this is an art where there is the reality of image. And not all art reflects reality. Why should it? Art should also be allowed and have been allowed in all tradition to add to reality by creating a new reality. Why are we condemned or cursed by trying to grapple with reality all the time? An artist can decide to throw out reality out of the window, out of the palette, out of his room. He keeps on throwing many things, perhaps. Also reality. and it adds to reality. So it is an addition to reality rather than reflection of reality. There's another tendency which is interesting, and which again I think may be related to the legacy of Swaminathan. That is to allow forms float, as it were, out of the gravitational syndrome. So if you look at the other works there, you'll find that there's no particular reason except the logic of the form itself, in which different things are placed differently. The shapes are the triangles or whatever. Luckily, and this is what Oscar Wilde would have gladly said. He would have said, he said famously, all art is useless. But he could have also said, all art is meaningless. So don't try to impose meaning on this. This is not meaningful art. And thank God it is not. We can all carry our own meanings, and we can do what they like with those meanings. The world is full of all kinds of meanings being imposed on us. So it's much better that sometimes we just watch the image that emerges, the reality which takes over, which reality cannot be translated, even if you are such an able translator into critical terms like Yashodhara ji, a reality which refuses to be reduced to verbal or philosophical terms. A reality which, as audaciously as colors in these paintings, stands on its own, refusing to be reduced to meanings and what you have. Sorry, I took too much time. Go ahead. You wanted to add something.
It's difficult to say something after what Ashok ji said, because everything amounts to an interpretation. Yet, there's something I can't help feeling. When I look at the triangles, and the fact that they are, gliding up or gliding on the surface in many of the works, unlike his earlier works where they were stationary, one can't help feeling that there is a kind of Newman involved. Newman meaning a sense of self, and not Swaminathan's Newman, but Newman which is somehow, let's say not psychic, but some sense of a being which is conscious and which is somehow floating up, usually up on the surface. Is this a way of sublimating himself, his works, and the reality? But also, are we then trying to see a self which is constantly, it's a conscious, thinking, moving self, which is saying that reality is not one, it's plural, it's multiple, and it constantly changes. I don't know how you feel about this, Harsha.
Somebody walked up to me once and said that, what is the meaning of this? So I said, it doesn't have the meaning. If it has a meaning, then it should have 100 meanings. So I don't want to send a particular meaning to society at large. Then there are some other very interesting comments which I received, and there was this lady who came up to me and said that Durga is very strong in your painting. So I said, thank you very much. Gave her a smile. Then a couple walked up to me once and said, Harsha, we have acquired your work and peace has come into our home. But I can, on my honor, say that I was neither intentionally sending peace to somebody's house nor painting Durga. So this meaning is, it's just, you have to put the meaning. I don't want to convey it. And the meaning can be, I mean, for somebody, it might be one meaning, for somebody else, it might be some totally another meaning. So
Then it's a feeling. Then it's a feeling.
Okay, feeling, meaning, whatever.
I am reminded of an episode which took place in Bharat Bhavan. A chief minister of a state came and I was conducting him. And in Rupankar, right in front, there was a painting of Ambadas. Now, he looked at it for about maybe 10 seconds. And he said, what is the meaning of this? So I remembered what Swaminathan had told the President of India, who asked a similar question about the same painting. It has no meaning. It is itself.
Yes.
Itself.
It is itself.
So I told him the same answer. Of course, he was not satisfied. And we walked a little. Then I asked him, sir, are you interested in classical music? And he said, yeah, I'm very fond of Hindustani classical music. So I said, who's your favorite vocalist? He said, Bhimsen Joshi. In those days, there used to be long playing records. And there was a long playing record which was doing the rounds, was his singing Malkons, Paglagandi. So I asked the chief minister, sir, you must have listened to this rendering of Malkons by Bhimsenji? He said, 20 times. Now I could see him coming into my net very cleverly. So I said, sir, you have heard it 20 times, which means you have heard it for 10 hours.
Now take me the
What is the meaning of Rag Malkons? He said, what do you mean? What do you mean? I said, sir, you just watched a painting for 10 seconds and you want that I should tell you the meaning. I'm asking you, you have heard Rag Malkons. What is the meaning of Rag Malkons? I think we should stop asking stupid questions about art. What is the meaning? What is the message? There is no meaning. There is no message. You can carry your own message. Most of us are imprisoned on our own impressions and experiences, and you're free to read them as that. The artist is not obliged to give you a meaning. And if there are meanings, there will be multiple meanings, because same painting can be interpreted. In poetry, we had a famous poem by Wallace Stevens, which was called 13 Ways of Looking at a Blackbird. So now if there are 13 ways of looking at a blackbird, there should be at least 1300 ways of looking at man. And each one of them would be equally valid or equally invalid. Because this is, a meaning is a creation between your perception of the work. So it is partly your creation. Meaning is not something inherent. You give the meaning. कुमार गंधर्व कहते थे राग तो नंगा है, कपड़े तो हम पहनाते हैं. What does it mean? That rag has no fixed meaning. Therefore, a painting has no fixed meaning. And the paintings which give you the message or the meaning too easily are usually not good works of art. They are message-ridden, meaning-loaded, and therefore lose their artistic, shall we say,
Potency.
There is a song sung by Lata Mangeshkar Ji, in a film called Mera Side. Tu Jahan Jahan Chalega Mera Side. It is set on the Rag Anandi or Anand Kavyas. And that was an extremely popular song. It probably made the film also very trouble. Now, when you listen to, not to undermine Lata Mangeshkar ji, she is in perfect tune, tal, etc. Everybody loves that song. Now, taste it. Pandit Mallikarjun Mansoor was singing Rag Anandi and doing Now there won't be many people who would be able to digest it very easily.
Yeah, that's true.
So, music, and now I'm going to come to something which Harsha himself has delved in, which is science. He has, he began his career as a biomedical and then gave it up, I think, sometime in 93, Harsha?
Yes, around.
93, to devote himself to art full time. He's a self-taught artist and very intuitive and inventive as a result. Now, when I see some of these works, I see some planetary science, which makes me wonder if we are now entering a different space, a kind of spatial geometry, which is, defying meaning, but also is it taking us into aerial zones? Would you agree with that, Harsha?
Sure.
I really don't know what to say. I don't conceive a painting in my mind like right on the polymeter, right? But I just apply color. Whatever color is in front of me, apply that. Cover the whole canvas with it, and then see what to do next or what comes. Then I apply another color. But this repeating form of the triangle, or in this series, there is this sort of a shape which might be interpreted as a mountain. These are all, they won't signify anything. If these are all the zones of color, and how to demarcate or differentiate one zone from another zone. It's more instinct rather than anything deliberate, I feel.
But there is some, what one may call, there is some kind of an very well controlled orchestration between colors. Even though you put them randomly, but after all, the colors do come into some kind of
that random as such.
Yeah.
There is, of course, I apply a color and then I find that this is more disturbing. Apply another layer over it.
So you think behind these paintings there are other layers?
Oh yes. Behind this mountain there is another mountain. I think there's a poem like that of my father.
Yeah. पहाड़ के पीछे और पहाड़. Yeah.
And that's what sort of provides some kind of consistency also, that these are not just one layer works, there are many layers. And it's like, and if you are taking a walk in a forest, and the forest is very beautiful, very nice, you stop at one place, sit down there, ruminate a bit, and then after that you get up and start again and start walking again till you reach the next walk. So these are, in fact, I like to say that my works are never finished. Whenever I see my works on the wall, I feel like doing something more on it. That there has to be some stop or commas.
Harsha, I again can't help feeling that not only are these colors very carefully juxtaposed, but there is on the one hand, there is a layering of colors one over the other, so that there is a certain what shall I say, they glimmer, And on the other hand, they are very nuanced. Quite a few of them are nuanced and, travel through the shades into lighter zones. So, is there any sort of planning about this, that they are nuanced and yet they are, layered?
Well, not really, but while I'm applying those colors, my eyes are also seeing what is the result. So there is some kind of a dynamism which I feel that this is not so. All right, so apply some more and see if that gets. But these are not something which I have thought before and then I've done it. That apparently wrote a book called The Thinking Eye, yes, and so forth. But it just proceeds as the painting grows. But this collection of colors in this particular show are very different. I was like Ashok Vajpeyi were mentioning that these colors have, it's like there is a big splash of various colors in the. Yeah. That's a bit new for me. But I think I've achieved some kind of freedom as far as color is concerned.
Sometimes I get very wary of some art, many contemporary friends practice, when they try to say too much. They have a kind of a loquaciousness in their. Now here I find that Harsha is not. Harsha is practicing practicing how not to say too many things. So there is a kind of a again the Sanskrit word come in alpabhashikta, where you are not putting too much and restraining yourself, and allow the forms to merge and stabilize and leave it at that. So, in other words, there is a minimality in spite of the exuberance and the audacious presence of color. In terms of utterance, there is a minimality. And I think that's. I'm reminded not only of Swaminathan, but also of Gaitonde, who I thought all his life was trying to arrive at a point when almost to say nothing. It is impossible not to say anything, but he was almost striving towards that. And I think Harsha has a point there that I should not burden. Another humorous way of putting it is, you think you have already burdened the viewer with a lot of color, why should you now burden it with some utterance? Right.
I'd like to end whatever I have to say with a quote of my late father. He said, "The language of painting is very formal. It is also opaque. It is a language of qualitative cognition and not one of analytical apprehension."
Yes, that's true.
That's very well said, Harsha. And one appreciates the fact that, you don't talk away the painting. You talk so much that the painting goes out of one's horizon. However, since you've quoted your father, I did get a little bit reminded of Kandinsky. And I thought I would write down that quote, so I'll just read it out.
Yeah, you all did. Right. Well,
Gosh, can't find it.
Like in any lady's purse, there are many things, and the one which you want would not be there.
Very true. But I found it. And I thought of Kandinsky only. Okay. He was an artist. No, it's fine. Vasily Kandinsky was on the forefront of those who investigated the expressive attributes of artistic materials without reference to natural appearance. According to him, there are the forms hold the belief that pure artists seek to express only inner and essential feelings and ignore the superficial and the fortuitous. And I got reminded of him because he was, of course, on the forefront of expressionism, and of course there was the war. But what he was suggesting was that let us look at paintings as they are for themselves, without looking at their reflective qualities of the outside world. And I think that, Harsha, in your own way, in your own trajectory, this is what you're trying to achieve.
For example, when we look at a flower, we describe it, there is color in it, there is smell in it, it has a function, and so on and so forth. But why don't we ask what is the meaning of this flower?
Well, we have this whataboutery has been dominating the art conversation for too long. What is it all about? So to which one of my answers is, I'm not about anybody else. I am myself. Am I any the less human or any the less Ashok Vajpeyi because I'm not about anything else? I am myself. So why don't you accept that? On the other hand, let me point out to another aspect of these paintings, and maybe we should finish with that unless, and maybe some people would like to comment. There is a lyrical purity in these works. I mean, in spite of the fact, and lyrical purity, the lyric ideally, as it emerged in the West, was not supposed to have the burden of meaning, It was rhythm, it was resonance, it was cadence, it was wordplay, etc. These were the elements of lyric. What it was all about is not very important. So I think there is that kind of a lyrical purity. To me, they appear like, I have not used the word so far, but I am now tempted to use it, abstract poems. They're poems in color, and they're poems which really can be read purely in terms of color, shapes, forms, combinations, etc. Now we can keep on doing this for a long while. That's enough, I think. If there are some friends who would like to say anything or ask Harsha a question,
Say it.
Thanks, sir. Pero, tell me, thanks, sir, as this wonderful listen and thanks the curator to take them all together. And that brings me to my first question. I mean, there are two ways of looking at this whole thing. One is to look each painting in abstraction from the other see. But that is not the way it is designed. I mean, one can do that. But the other is to look each painting in relation to at least the one next to it, if not.
yeah.
And I think the way, I won't use the word meaning, but I think our way of looking at these paintings changes. If we look them in isolation, in abstraction from one another, and if we look them in their relation about that. I wonder if you have anything to say. And I'm actually, in addition to that, I have a question about the production of painting. About the production of painting. I mean, as an artist, it's entirely possible for you to have painted one by one. You still paint one, finish it, then go to the other. But there is another way that you could have painted. This is a question which is to know when your creativity, how is that there are many paintings and that you have painted, or about them are incomplete, and you sort of, for the time being, and I'm picking on what you said, for the time being, you complete one. This is in as and then having completed the other, you in relation to that painting complete the second, or perhaps make the work progresses in one, and then depending upon how the others have been. So you do them all in their relationship with one another. Well, that's one. If you want to answer that.
Yeah, initially,
and I'll come back to my second.
Initially, I used to paint only one painting at a time.
Yeah. Now,
but this time, I have, especially since they are small canvas, I have 2, 3, 4 canvases and tackle them simultaneously. When I was doing them one at a time, I used to get stuck at times, and then I would put them away under my bed or something, and then readdress them after a period of time. While I painted other works in between during that time, and suddenly readdress them after 6 months or something, and I would get talking. That's how but this time there have been 2 or 3 canvases online, and though I don't know, there's something strange here with that. It's not that they are very similar to each other if you look carefully. I mean, there is this triangle in all of them, but there are some lot of vectors occur.
and they are, yeah.
I'm have one or two other. See, I wonder if this is the work of a mature artist.
Sorry?
These are works of a mature artist. Somebody, there's 50 years of your work in each of these paintings, and they are not sets. It's not the end of it. And there's another, hopefully, many other. And so I wonder what will happen if you actually have not. I mean, these are paintings painted roughly in the same period. But you actually put a lot of them in the diachronicity. I mean, if they're put together. I mean, I wonder if you've had a retrospective of your paintings. I mean, I've known you for I don't know how many thousands of years, but I am. I mean, there is a lot that I can relate to, which is not. It's not that it's similar, but it's true. That the earlier painting and these paintings have a relationship.
It's a thread.
So, I mean, I'm wondering if we can have this is just a comment. It's not a. The third thing is I can't help saying that I think I agree with each one of the speakers here, including Ashok, that the meaning of the work is not in the intention of the artist. I mean, that's there or not there is very relevant. The meaning is inscribed in the work. Now, we can say that there is no meaning there, but let's say something like meaning is inscribed. I completely agree, just by looking at even one painting, that this is not narrative meaning. So, it's a non-narrative meaning, potentially, is inscribed in this work. It's not to be discovered in the intention of the artist. It is not to be discovered by looking at our society or our politics or, the world around us. But there could be something, and I think you've already answered that. So this is also not a question. These are multiple ways.
Yeah, I would qualify what I said earlier, that I don't make with the intention of conveying a meaning, but definitely they are very meaningful to others. You have that's the frequency.
I think perhaps what you mean, Rajiv, is that the person who's looking at it is imbibing it with meaning, which has to do with his own history, memory, and recall.
I'm saying is a little more than that, which is that each one of us who looks at it will find not just, of course, there will be one's own subjective kind of rejection, but there is something, in the subjective. I mean, it's not something which is going to be complete.
They're not empty, you're saying.
No, empty, all of us will find some commonness in these, which is, so it's not just no meaning or each one will look for its own meaning. There is something, I mean, go back to Kumarji, Genie. I mean, any good listener will find Kumarji singing a meaning, they will find some meaning which we will be able to share with one another. And I think that is the same thing which is true of many of these works. There is something that we can talk about and share together. It may not be it's not one, it's not immediately graspable, but it's not as if it's completely, I'm sure everybody here will agree with me, but it's not something that's completely, either truly intersubjective
or subjective.
I would sort of say something.
Is there somebody else who wants to say something?
Yes. Yeah.
Otherwise, let us see the paintings.
Let's see the painting.
Thank you so much. Bhagvat is part.